Right, I've been tagged. One of those rare occasions when another tuber has mentioned me in an Easter book tag, in which I've been named by Vulgar Eclectic. If you want to go and check their channel out. Easter themed matters, I suppose. So it's to name books along a series of Eastery themes. The first being rabbits, a book you would wish to multiply, or a book you want a sequel to. Okay, well, it's not going to be a fictional choice. A book I think I'd like to see a sequel to is Barry Adamson's autobiography, Up Above the City, Down Beneath the Stars, which takes us from the womb, in fact, from Barry's time in Mummy's tummy, up to I suppose the late 80s, where we see him at the start of his solo career. So this book takes us through early life and through his period as bass player in Magazine, and Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. It gets dark, right? It gets. I mean, I've been lucky enough to have met Barry on a couple of occasions, but there's stuff that comes out in here. Actually, I was going to do a sort of separate music book thing, so maybe I won't go into too much detail. But anyway, I think Barry's, subsequent to the Bad Seeds, etc., the solo career he's led, I would think deserves its own volume, and I'm sure there's a lot of stories there. So fingers crossed. If you're out there, Bazza, come on, let's have it. Next one, Egg, a book that surprised you. Well, another musical themed one, I suppose. This one, I hope isn't autobiographical. I suspect elements of it are, but Go Now by Richard Hell. Now, the blurb on the front, this is a few words from William Gibson about Hell and this book. Go Now is scabrous, unforgivable, and deserving of, I'm struggling to read this in this light actually, and deserving of the widest possible audience. Now, the ending of this book, I won't give it away, but again, I've been lucky enough to have met Richard Hell and to be able to have a conversation with him. However, I don't think I got as far as bringing up the ending of this book. If you've read it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've not read it, if you intend to read it, I would say brace yourselves. It's shocking, the ending of this. I don't know, Richard. Yeah, certainly surprised me. Okay, next up, Hunt, a book that was hard for you to get your hands on. Well, I actually expected I'd have to pay a bit more for this one. Martin, there's no idea, I don't think there's another author's name on this other than George. £20, not too bad, but just it came up quite by chance at one of those sort of infrequent little collectors pulp and paperback fairs you sometimes get, and it's been a while since I've been to one, but I think this one had actually, I think it might have been on a wants list video I did. I could be wrong on that, but anyway, yeah, so bit of a find. Lambs, a children's book that you still enjoy. Well, I've got a few of these. Do you remember there was a time before these were all ironic and they were actual just straightforward books, no kind of humorous postmodern agenda to them. They were just these books that you had as kids, and they were wonderfully illustrated. The illustrations, I mean, this one completely captured my imagination as a kid. Look at that. I don't know if that's meant to be Blackbeard, but there's a bunch of scallywags that just set light to some frigate or something. I mean, get a load of that. That's how could you not, as a small boy, fall in love with that? And I was sort of lucky enough to have been able to uncover a copy in adult life. I mean, some quite shocking imagery in here. There's Captain Kidd brains one of his crew with a bucket. There's there we go, Blackbeard. Look at that. You wouldn't want that coming at you, would you? And yeah, the classic walking the plank scenario, apparently not as frequent as pirate legend would have you believe. The Captain Gow marching into town with a piper. There's a very angry Pope, Barbarossa. There's kind of there's some sort of there's a lot of cleavage in this book actually. There's Mary Read, and followed by an even more booby Anne Bonny. I don't know how historically accurate those. I don't know if documents specify their anyway. Yeah, what else is it? I mean, it's quite disturbing in some cases. She's not what you call a lady. Who was that? That was Captain. No, Mary Cobham, Captain Cobham's Mrs. presumably. There's a guy being messed up with an axe. What a thing to present children with. On a lighter note, there's Captain Edward Lowe's childhood as a wig thief. What else? But then there's by contrast, we have the curiously mild-mannered Captain William Dampier, who it argues may not be considered a proper pirate at all, and was kind of more interested in documenting the botany of the exotic locations which he visited. You just sort of see the guys in the background. It's almost like a speech bubbles or a thought bubbles. We have our doubts about Captain. Anyway, yes, nice one from childhood. Spring, a book with a cover that makes you think of spring. Now, I'm afraid this is going to be a little bit dark. Ralph Rothman, I guess that's Rothman. I don't know how you pronounce that. To Die in Spring. Now, this, contrary to my usual diet of admittedly rather trashy World War II exploitative fiction, this one is Ralph Rothman isn't of an age to have been a war veteran at all. I think this book is kind of his attempt to extrapolate his father's experiences. There's a preamble which details this. His father, who was just of an age where he might just have escaped enlistment during the Second World War. However, in the dying weeks of it, him and I suppose many others his age would have been more or less press-ganged into membership of the Waffen-SS, the last organisation that a post-war generation really would have wanted their names associated with, I suspect, in most cases anyway. But I think this is an attempt by the author to sort of expand on what few clues he had about his evidently rather troubled father's wartime memories. And it details, I'll give you a bit of blurb here. In this masterpiece, Ralph Rothman manages the seemingly impossible. He describes the guilt of their fathers from the viewpoint of the post-war generation without any descent into smug moralising. So it's set around this time of the year, Aprilish, and it details the experiences of two hitherto unblemished teenagers who find themselves rather unwillingly co-opted into SS membership. It's not light reading, but it's one memorable book. Next, Jesus, a religious or spiritual book that you love. Okay, you got me there. I am not very spiritual. I don't think I even own anything that would come under that description. I mean, I suppose you could argue any half-decent book by default would... Oh, I don't know. What am I saying? You could argue any book that's had, that the author's put anything into would have, to some extent, an injection of divine magic or creation into it. But this is just me bullshitting here. I mean, I've got books concerned with not textbooks, but works of fiction concerning themselves with the world of the occult, if that qualifies. So how about The Wicker Man? I don't know where I put my copy of it, but the novel of The Wicker Man. That's spiritual in its way, right? It's certainly a spring. It's certainly an Eastery book, spring book. Rising from the Dead, a book from a deceased author. Oh, well, that narrows it down, doesn't it? Why not? I think he's been gone about 12 or 13 years. J.G. Ballard, who's very shiny Cocaine Nights I have in my hand here. I wouldn't say this is my favourite of his books, but it's one of the more, I suppose it's one of his more late in life offerings. But you can't go wrong with Ballard, actually, in my experience, whether it's science fiction or his memoir, Empire of the Sun. I picked up a copy of recently. Always worth investigating. Baskets, a book that is in your cart or wish list right now. Now, this has prompted me to go off on one of my little personal bugbears. You are not compelled to make every purchase from the one online retailer. Why does it always default to, I'm not going to mention their name, you have alternatives but to buy from that monster. Anyway, I would say in my wants list at the moment, or one that I'm watching courtesy of another online monster, but there's at least more variety and individual traders, I would guess, with this one. Andrzej Bierka's The Lake of the Dead, which is a reprint by the very distinguished Vaillancourt International Books. So that's currently on my list. Next, Candy, or as we say here, Sweeties, a book that is sweet. Well, one comes to mind, which is Michael Carson's Sucking Sherbet Lemons. Now this says on the front, the word from Simon Callow here, I howled with laughter on page after page. The funniest novel I've read all year. It's, if you don't know it, it concerns itself with the life of Benson, or Wobbles Benson as he's known at school. He's got a bit of a sweet tooth, and it tells on him. Now Benson is very serious about his Catholicism, but he has to, as he grows up, he finds he has to kind of reconcile that with the fact that he's gay. And this book handles that, I suppose, tug of war with a great deal of humour, and it's such a great book. And like the word on the front says, it will make you howl. Now this this book includes a rude club, which it's one of those teenage boy things, I suppose. Benson, as a teenager, a young teenager, is the somewhat guilt-stricken member of the rude club. Right? Just read it. Anyway, the last on the list is Peeps. Peeps. What is in the noises Easter chicks make, presumably. Peeps. Tag people. I'll get to that. Yeah, let me think. Anyway, thank you. And like I say, check out Vulgar Eclectic's channel. Thank you, Vulgar Eclectic, for nominating me.